Expect anything different?
Ridiculous Fondling Cardboard.
What is up? Welcome back to Fondling Cardboard. I'm your host, Mike Lakusta, aka the Golf Card Collector. Happy Masters Week, y'all. We just finished round one of the Masters, and let me tell you, there's some exciting stuff going on. We've got Bryson DeChambeau shooting the low score of the day at 7 under par. We've got some people nipping at the heels. We've got some guys who haven't managed to finish their round, some guys who haven't even made the turn. So this is definitely barely the beginning of the Masters. It's kind of unusual. There haven't been as many storylines as I'm used to seeing. No crazy hole-in-ones in the par 3 contest. No Billy Horschel slipping and falling into the mud. But we got 3 more days to make memory here, folks. I've got a special episode for you as friend of the show, James Peacock, comes on, and we talk about a handful of golfers that I did not get into last week with Connor. And it's funny because when I look back at that recording I had with Connor, some of the picks that I had as favorites or even dark horse picks at the Masters didn't have trading cards. When I looked at the top 40 players in terms of betting odds, the guy, when I deleted the guys I talked about last week, everyone left actually had a lot of great cards. So I'm going to do something really special this week. I sat down with James for a pretty lengthy recording, and we went over a good number of those players, talked about our brief takes on the players, and dived into some of the details of their trading cards. And rather than just all dumping that onto you at once in this one episode, I'm going to be chopping it up, and we're releasing a podcast episode this week after every round of the majors. If you're just tuning in to this episode as a participant of the Fondling Cardboard 5th Annual or the All Majors Golf Pools, welcome to the show. I hope this helps you get a taste of what the podcast is all about. Feel free to pursue my catalog of past episodes and tell a friend to tune in if they like golf or collectibles, even if they're not in our contests. All right, guys, before I get into the conversation with James, before I talk about a summary of our round 1 recap in the pool, I have to give a quick shout out to a sponsor of this episode. That's right, we actually have a sponsor. It's not a financial sponsor. It's a friend of mine, Paul Hickey at nooffseason.com and host of the Sports Card Strategy Show. And Paul generously donated a Jon Rahm Sports Illustrated for Kids rookie card PSA 7 as a draw prize for my Masters pools. Thank you so much, Paul, for that generous donation. And in exchange, I'm here to tell you all about his premium membership at nooffseason.com. Paul and his guys will help you learn to make money flipping cards. Not exactly for me, but hey, Paul would be the first one to say that making wise financial decisions in my personal collecting is basically the same thing as investing or flipping in cards. So there you go. All right, let's dive into some recap of the actual Masters pool. We have to start off the 5th Annual Masters pool with my friends, family, coworkers, colleagues, customers, etc. So in the pool, we have a clear leader. We have Keegan at 14 under par, JB at 13 under par, tied with JJ Fleury. 4th place, we've got Rob Schiltz at -12, James Lay at 11 under par, and round off our top 6, Rory at 10 under. To look at the spotlight of Keegan's roster as the leader, he has Scotty Scheffler, of course, 6 under par, Will Zalatoris at 3 under, Ryan Fox at 3 under, and Max Homa at 3 under. What I find really interesting about Keegan's roster, though, is that his 2 other golfers, because this is a 6-pick only top 4, pick 6 top 4 score, his 2 non-scoring players are Peter Malnati at 4 over par and Nick Taylor at 5 over par. So, Keegan, you really better hope that your top 4 continue to pull weight for you. All right, moving into the Fondling Cardboard Master Pool. This is, of course, where we have sports cards as the prizes. We've got Thomas Riemann in the lead, also at 14 under par, although he is tied with Dean Fortino. Then we've got Ryan Seelock and Todd Larson tied for third, both at 10 under par, and we've got a backlog of 4 guys at 9 under par. That's Brandon Kaiser, obgolfco.com, Justin Lee, and Rob Schiltz. Rob, thank you so much for actually participating in both of my pools. Right on, man. A spotlight on Thomas Riemann's roster. He's got Scotty Scheffler, 6 under par, Danny Willett at 4 under, Tyrrell Hatton, 3 under, Matt Fitzpatrick, 1 under par, Sepp Straka is only 1 over par, and that's his 5th best, and then Hideki Matsuyama at 4 over. And as for the all majors pool, it is actually a different style of scoring. We are going based off of total earnings of your roster, not score relative to par. So it's actually difficult to project. If I've got some time, maybe tomorrow evening, I might try and work out some programming to actually have a live leaderboard based on a projection of the earnings at the end of the tournament. But we'll see if I can really get to that. All right, now I did mention that Bryson DeChambeau is in the lead at 7 under par, but how did I not actually give a little brief overview of what's been happening? So not only is Bryson in the lead, but we've got Scotty Scheffler in second place at 6 under par. As anybody predicted, Scotty has the best betting odds since Tiger Woods in his prime. That was at the beginning of the tournament when everybody was even par. Now that he's sitting near the top of the leaderboard, as anybody could have predicted, I'm sure you can't make very much money betting on Scotty because he is, I'm sure, the favorite to win. Moving along, though, is a guy that I picked in one of my pools, Nikolai Hodggaard. This is a guy who I also actually just sold one of his cards. I had his Upper Deck Artifacts RPA, dual patch, just the base RPA out of 149. I pulled that card myself, so it does have a little bit of sentimental value, but you can't hold on to everything in life, so some other person can enjoy that card. He's sitting at 5 under par. They've got a couple guys overnight at 4 under par. Danny Willett, as I mentioned, actually just gave away a Danny Willett card in the pool draw prizes. So check out that draw prize video on YouTube. Just search for the golf card collector or something like that. Should pop up. Or if you're in one of the pools, I'm sending out nightly post-round recaps with a link to the YouTube video. And lastly, we have Max Homa sitting 4 under par. This is one of James Peacock's favorite golfers. And in the interview, James shares a little bit about Max Homa. We're also going to be talking a bit about Rory McIlroy, Jon Rahm, Will Zalatoris, Viktor Hovland. In fact, I think it might just be those guys that we get to today. You might need to wait until one of the next few days for us to actually get to Max Homa. Without further ado, here's the interview. Happy Masters Week. You excited?
Happy Masters Week. Oh man, I'm stoked. I usually don't like going on vacations or block out time, but this is the one time of year on like Saturday and Sunday. I'm doing my thing. I'm blocking out the days.
Awesome. So last week, I talked with Connor Barnett of the Sports Card Strategy Show, just doing some picks, some favorites in the Masters, some dark horse picks. And something that was interesting is a lot of the guys that I picked don't have cards. I wasn't approaching that conversation with cards in mind, and I really should have because this is a hobby podcast. But once I took the top, let's say 40 players in the Masters, and I deleted all the players that I talked to Connor about, the remaining players, literally only like 1 or 2 didn't have any. So it made me realize I need to talk to someone who loves cards, and we need to kind of flip through this list. How's that sound?
Yeah, man, let's do it. Again, this is the best time of the year, I think, to again be involved in the hobby. And if we could just chat about some of these key players and some of their key cards, I think that would be a lot of fun.
So we're going to call this rapid fire, knowing that we may not end up being too rapid, but let's give it a shot. So I'm going to name a name, and then we'll just give me a quick take on the player, and then let's talk about what their cards are. So first off, Rory McIlroy.
Rory. So quick take on him. This whole live controversy has kind of put a tiny bit of a sour taste in my mouth for Rory in terms of, a lot of his opinions, but I can't look over his track record, right? He's a great player, and he's typically a good ambassador for the sport, and he's overdue for a Masters win. I would not be upset if he won. I think it would just be good for the sport. It'd be good for him, and anyone completing a Grand Slam, I think is pretty cool.
Yeah, that's his the Masters is his remaining major to win before he has the career Grand Slam. And just to, I honestly don't have a sour taste about him. I feel like it was Jay Monahan who really was the the two-faced person in this situation. I
That's
don't feel
fair.
like Rory was being inauthentic. I feel like he was taking his stance and really wanted what he believed in. I think now maybe he's being forced, his arms being twisted to take a more moderate or middle ground stance on the whole thing. In my eyes, I don't feel like his legacy's tarnished. I don't personally hold anything against him, but I could definitely see how others were. There, people who are fans of Liv definitely have it out for Rory.
Yeah, and I think any negative feelings I get about him, it's actually like you said, good intention. He just has such love for the game, and he's such a pure love of the PGA that's all that's coming from. So no sweat
So
there.
what about Rory cards?
Yeah, he actually has a ton. So he's one of those players that has like hundreds of cards. So if you're a Rory fan, there are tons of options there. Going back all the way to his very first card, which is kind of a trend here, is Sports Illustrated for Kids. He has a 2011. So if you want to go all the way back, I would consider that his pre-rookie. And then his actual true rookie, a lot of people think it's the SP Authentic Auto, but there's actually a 2012 game used like base card that I consider his true rookie.
You know what's interesting about base cards in golf is that the only one that I really hear about much is the Tiger Woods 2001 number one. Unless we're talking from the 80s, like Don Russ, Jack Nicklaus rookie card. But nowadays, it almost seems like rookie cards aren't talked about, or sorry, base rookie cards aren't talked about all that much. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think when people think of like rookie cards in the modern age, a lot of them, people think of autographs or RPAs. So that's fair because he has a beautiful 2014 SB Authentic that's numbered to 299. So that's iconic. But I'm kind of I'm partial to things that come really early. So I love pre-rookies and true rookies. Those are like my outside of set collecting. Those are my favorites. So I think it's kind of cool and refreshing that it's a base card. Good thing though is that they weren't like printed to the moon like the 2001 set was, so they're actually still pretty rare for being a base card.
Nice, nice. So that was 2012 SP game used. And then was there anything in 2013 or just 2014 suddenly his rookie
Yeah, he had
autographs?
a ton of Goodwin, right? So that's when
Uh,
Goodwin came out, and there's tons of Goodwin cards from 2013 for Rory. And then we get into 2014 with all the SP authentic and all that fun stuff.
awesome, right on. Okay, next name, John Rahm. Quick take on him.
Uh, I'm a big fan of John Rahm. I love watching him play. I love his swing. Every time I'm on the range, I try to replicate that short backswing. I can never pull it off. So, yeah, I mean, I think he's a great player. I think I have no ill will for him for joining Live. I think that was a really cool decision, and it's going to help grow that. So, overall, big fan of John and loved seeing him win last year. So, yeah, what do you
Okay,
think of
awesome.
John?
Well, I find it funny. So your gut instinct on Rory was a little bit of not negativity, but a little hesitancy. John Rahm, love him. So now I see what side of the fence you're on. No, I'm just kidding. The whole Live versus PGA thing has gone too far. So I'm like you. I don't hold anything against him. I was shocked when he joined. To be frank, I was listening to a podcast recently, and the guys were talking about the golf analysts were saying John Rahm almost he doesn't seem like he regrets going to Live, but he seems frustrated at how slow this whole agreement is moving along. It almost seems like when he joined right after the Masters last year, or maybe not right after the Masters, but this time last year ish, he thought that he was going to be back on the PGA Tour come January 2024. That's almost the impression they're getting is that this
Wow.
framework agreement would finalize on schedule because it was supposed to be finalized in like December, and that he would just get this big payday and then be able to kind of play on both sides of the fence. And so it almost seems like in his interviews he is saying two different things. One of them obviously is being a script given to him by Liv. So um, but on a personal level, I don't hold anything against him. I think he's a fantastic player. Another aspect that you and I should probably just banter about right now is what are the chances? So we can skip on Rory, but what do you think Rahm's chances are on a back to back?
I think back to back is so hard to pull off, and even the best players in the game, we're barely able to pull it off once. So I think it's a pretty low chance. I think there's too much pressure. I think he'll play well, but if I was a betting man, I don't think he has a good chance of winning this week.
Well, I would say there's 87 other qualified candidates to win the Masters, so you're probably I would probably have to side with you there. You know, he very well may come top 10. He may have an excellent finish, but at the end of the day, only one guy can win. So what about Rahm cards? I mean, I know what the answer is, but let's hear it from you.
Yeah, kind of the polar opposite of Rory. There's very few cards. We have a Sports Illustrated for Kids back in 2019. You can either get that cut or you can get the uncut sheet. And that's kind of your options. I know, anecdotally, there is some old sets that the USGA used to put out that used to hand out cards. Apparently, there's a John Rahm version of that card. So that's a 2015 card, but I don't own it and I've never seen it. So it's something I've kept my eyes out for. There's a couple other players that have this like USGA set as some of their pre-rookies. But again, if you're talking about official licensed pack pulled cards, there's nothing
Well,
until, later in the year.
and the Sports Illustrated for Kids was 2016, is that right?
I think it was 2019.
Oh, 2019. Wow. So he had to wait a
Yeah,
little while to get his rookie. Okay.
he did.
All
That's
right.
it.
Not much card talk with John Rahm. So
Nope.
next, and I know there will be some chat with this guy, Will
Oh man.
Zalatoris.
Well, yeah, I will say I wanted to know your take on him as a person because honestly, I haven't listened to a lot of his interviews or followed. I've only watched him play throughout the round, so I don't really know about a lot about his background. But I will say, from the card collecting slash sort of upper deck world, they are pushing him hard. So I'm kind of curious your take on that as to why you think he has so many cards compared to other players around the same age.
He's an interesting guy. I did an entire episode on Will Zalatoris a number of months ago when he made his return at the Genesis Open in January, at the same time as Tiger Woods made his return to action. Both of them were coming off pretty significant injuries. And, you know, it's interesting. When he first hit the scene, he was an absolute nobody. Like nobody was talking about him leading into the whatever random PGA event it was. Um, but like within a few short months, suddenly he was contending at the Masters. His name was at the top of the leaderboard. He has one or two events. I forget which ones. And so he kind of went from rags to riches like pretty quickly. Like and with that, you know, he had a lot of like people trying to figure him out. And so I don't know if he's really put his full personality out there. I don't feel like he's super guarded, but I feel like we haven't really got to know him yet. Especially since we missed out on 6, 10 months, whatever it was that he was injured.
Sure.
But what I can say from this year is that uh, when he returned, he came dead last place, shot like 10 over par or something terrible. And he looked shaky, but I am so impressed with how he is bouncing back. He has some strong mental and physical fortitude to come back, completely crap the bed, and then week over week make incremental improvements to the point where after a couple months he's playing fantastic golf again. And it was
Oh,
really he just really had to shake off the rust. So I'm happy to see that. And the one kind of interview that sticks out of my mind is um it was an event, gosh, I don't think he won. I think he came second place, and he had just had a family member pass away like that Thursday, like the first day of the event. And it was someone he was close to. And so he wasn't, you know, holding back his emotions. He didn't go on and on about it, but his interview was very heart moving and, you know, definitely gave me a lot of empathy for what he went through and how somehow he managed to have an incredible tournament nonetheless. And, you know, it just resonated with me on an emotional level.
that's awesome. Yeah, that's so inspiring. Like that makes me just that right there, I love rooting for the underdog. I love a good comeback story. So I would love to see him win again. That'd be really cool.
So as you said, Upper Deck has really been pushing him in their products. So let's talk a bit about his cards.
Yeah, I mean, shockingly, like when I went into this sort of conversation, when I was looking up some of these cards, he actually has the most cards of anybody we're going to talk about other than Tiger Woods.
Wow. That's
Over 480 cards,
unique cards.
unique cards.
Does that include serial numbered parallels, different colored
That includes
variations?
everything. That includes all the super glow stuff that isn't as, official as the upper deck stuff, but that includes everything.
Wow.
So that's a huge amount of diversity there. Again, more than 3 or 4x than most of the people on the list or more. So I thought that was pretty interesting. And again, just like most, if you go back to the very start, there is a Sports Illustrated for Kids. That's actually 2019, so that's actually a year before Rahm, which is interesting. So if you wanted to go back early for him, it's a Sports Illustrated for Kids. And then from there, you have your pick of so much other than that. So you have Super Glow, you have Upper Deck game dated moments, and then you go into the Skybox Metal universe, and you can get all those parallels in the PMGs. And yeah, so there's actually a ton of diversity, probably more than any other young player.
So Zalatoris is interesting with his cards because his first pack pulled cards, I mean, other than Super Glow, I don't know if I'd call that pack pulled. I think the Super Breaks or whatever the company's called does package them up and maybe have some randomization to it. But in terms of like mainstay companies, his first rookie pack pulled cards were for Metal Universe Champions. That's interesting, hey?
That is very interesting. I think it's pretty rare for someone to have a pack pulled rookie card be from a multi-card set. I think that's pretty cool.
So then eventually he ended up in other multi-sport sets like Goodwin Champions. I think he's been in a couple of years of Goodwin Champions, if my memory's right.
Yep. Yep.
And then we also got him in the new Upper Deck golf releases of 2024. I assume he'll be in the others as well. Is that kind
Yep.
of an exhaustive list?
Yeah, that is. So again, unless we go into the details there, I think that's a perfect explanation of it. It's like we have Super Glow, which if you're not a fan of, that's okay. And then yeah, the Sky Metal stuff I would consider his true rookie stuff. And then yeah, there's a couple years of Goodwin and this latest set of 2024. And I assume the next two sets of 2024. I'd be shocked if he wasn't included in that, but we're gonna have to wait and find out for that.
Right on. Let's talk about somebody who was crazy hot at the end of the season last year. And then and so it's Viktor Hovland. And it's interesting because Upper Deck has a challenge on their hands because he, was playing so well. I don't remember if he made it to world number one, maybe 3 or 4, but he was on fire. He couldn't lose. And then he takes a break for the fall, comes back. I'm not going to say he's playing poorly, but he's not making any splashes. And Upper Deck has to predict this cycle to say who's going to be our poster boy for, the big rookies this year. And if they, were to hitch their wagon on Hovland, it just released at the wrong time.
Yeah, that's always been a struggle over there. Is if you look back to the early sets, you can look at the rookie cards and maybe 10 or 20% of them are relevant, right? So I think that's an issue they're always going to have. They do their best, but yeah, I agree that like back in 2022, 2023, he was super hot. That's when they started coming out with the game dated moments cards. So, print on demand where you purchase it and then they print it. So those are really cool. Those are like my first cards that I owned of Viktor Hovland were those game dated moments. So I loved watching him. He's very like relentless, never gives up, never really shows too much frustration on the course, very even killed, and just a really strong player. So I'd love to see him bounce back a little bit and play better. But yeah, I agree with your assessment there that like he's a perfect candidate for like a young gun and like rookie cards, but it's unfortunate that it didn't come out in like 2022 or 2023.
Hopefully turns it around. A Masters win would sure help him with that. In terms of cards, you mentioned game dated moments. He's got cards this year. What can you tell me about those?
Yeah, I mean he's in the latest 2024 sets, which is cool. He has a couple base cards in the 1 through 100 set. There's like two of them, like some season highlights where they kind of highlight certain moments of his season. So those cards are really cool. And then he has a young gun. So young guns are great. Like you kind of told me they're iconic from other sports. So I think if you're a fan of him, you got to pick up one of his young guns. And then you have lots of parallels. There's like clear cut parallels. He's part of the Clear Cut Legends, which is this cool kind of portrait where they just have their kind of head on this crest and it's kind of a clear background, which is cool. He has an extremely rare cleared for launch card that's like 1 in 4,000 packs. So you can get a little bit of everything. If you want just base cards, if you want parallels, or if you want really rare chase cards, it's kind of all there for Viktor.
Huge thank you to James for joining me. Anybody that I can nerd out about golf cards like that is going to be a great friend of mine and honestly worth listening to for any of you listeners just because you can sense his passion and hopefully mine as well. So card of the week this week is a giveaway. It's actually the first place prize for the Fondling Cardboard Masters pool. And it is a tall boy card, so it's not a standard trading card size. It's a 1997 to 99 Grand Slam Ventures Tiger Woods rookie card. This is not a pack pulled card. These basically came in a set. There's a couple of years of release. One of them was a gold foil version. One of them was kind of like a regular version. This one just happens to be a high grade. So this is an SGC 9. With ultra modern cards, you hear SGC and you just see the number 9 and you think, oh, that's not a high grade. But looking back at the 90s, it's crazy to think this card's over 25 years old. They actually are notorious for sticking together, like, you know, how cards in the 70s, 80s, whatever, would brick together and you have to peel them apart and the surface would kind of tear a little bit. Anyways, these are notorious for that. So to have a card graded as an SGC 9 is fantastic. This is actually the card that's been in my Instagram profile picture for a long time. I really loved this card. I had a great time owning it, but the winner of the Fondling Cardboard Masters Pool hopefully will enjoy it just as much as I did. As I mentioned earlier about some other card, the Nikolai Hodgegard that I pulled myself out of an Upper Decks Artifacts hobby box. You can't keep a card with you when you go. The cards aren't going to get buried with you. So I have so many cards that I enjoy, even the ones that I'm still enjoying. It could be time to let go. I mentioned it earlier to the new listeners, check out the catalog of my backdated episodes. But for you regular listeners, you know the deal. And for you newer listeners, especially those of you who came here because you heard me on Stacking Slabs, in the words of Brett McGrath, tell a damn friend about the podcast. I would keep doing this even if there was just you, a single listener out there. But the more listeners that join the community, the more rewarding this journey feels for me. I don't know why. I don't need a million listeners, but the more messages I get, the more people who are enthusiastic about golf cards, the more people who want to reflect on their own collecting habits and understand why we collect cards, it just makes me feel better about it all. So anyways, I would say see you next week, but actually I'll see you again tomorrow.
Ridiculous golf card collector.